Today, we're going to hop over and start talking about blade signs, which is going to be a new product that we've been doing a lot of research and development on. You guys are going to start seeing some cut sheets come out. We're going to talk more and more about it. Blake's going to do sort of just an overview today, get everyone familiar with the terms of a blade sign. And then we're going to get into a little bit of the shop drawing so you guys can see it's got some different elements. And just so everyone gets a first view, and then we'll take a deeper dive later in the month as we get into it. So floor is yours.
So I'm going to cover a little bit of just shop drawings in general. I'll go to the blade first. The blade will also be kind of an introduction into push-through, because it's essentially the same thing. A blade is just a double-sided push-through most of the time. There's also blades with trim cap or with retainers that we can do, but that's just a different mounting style. So I'll go into blades, and then I'll hit the shop drawings, and then just a couple terms that I've heard some customers ask that I want to make sure everyone's on the same page about. That way the internal dialogue, if somebody's asking you a question, we can kind of get to the bottom of it. That way you know what to send them and why.
So give them a, first of all, where does a blade hang?
If most of our signs are what we would call storefront signs, it would face a parking lot or a main street. A blade is going to be more of a walkway sign. So it's going to either be off of a sidewalk, it can still be storefront, but a lot of the times it's in more walking streets.
So it's going to project out from a building where both sides would be visible, right? Versus facing forward where the back side would be mounted to the building.
Yeah. So high foot traffic areas is one of the best ways to think about it. And usually in more alley type setups where it's really just foot traffic walking back and forth, maybe older cities in the United States, there's a lot of those. And then just certain areas where you want an aesthetic change off the side of the wall. So that's what blade signs are mainly used for. A blade sign is essentially a mini cabinet. It's kind of the way to think about it. And then it just has a different mounting style to it. So not a lot different than a logo box. It's just a logo box with more structure, which that's essentially what a cabinet is. So if anyone hears the term cabinet, it's just a logo box with some welding and a little bit more internal structure to it. A couple different pieces to a blade. It's heavy. It's a problem. So this here is actually just an ACM plate that we put on here. You see the two legs that are standing out, we call those armatures. The armatures are run through the side of it, and then it is welded to a plate at the bottom of it. So when they mount this on the wall, it's going to be mounted just like that, hanging off facing the road. Look at the other side. That's what the front side looks like as well. It's just a push through, and it's got a little bit of an overhang with some blockout vinyl on it. That's the general idea of it. I'm just going to show you the inside, and then we'll work to the faceplate part because I have a better example of that. That's not so heavy, so I don't lose my breath the entire time. Really, all we're doing here is these armatures run all the way through. So it's this little square tubing, and it runs all the way from this side to this side, and they're connected all the way on this far side over here. That is just what we put these bolts into. So these little hex head self tappers, that's where we connected it to. It's just in the armatures. This is just a plate so that we can put LEDs on it. That's the only purpose that this plate serves right here. But the armatures themselves run all the way through. So if you looked at the guts of this, it would just have two bars running through the center of it. Then
that's for the structure.
Just for the structure of it, just for a little bit of heft and some weight. The other side, so if you were looking on the side that's facing me right now, I'll show you on the other faceplate. It's just welded together in the corners with 1-inch angle iron. So it's no different than a dimensional backer when we went over those. It looks just like a crumble backer. It's just double-sided on that front. So it's just welded together and held. And then we weld the corners on here. The hard part about these is you have to paint. We build the whole thing as one. We have to mask the entire body of it, paint these black, let that dry. Then we have to mask off all the black and paint the rest the color that we want it painted. So that's the pink portion. Once you're done painting it is usually when you put the acrylic in. Sometimes we'll put the acrylic in before, and you also have to mask the acrylic. So it's a lot of paint work. Almost every time someone's going to order a blade, it's going to be a two-tone paint job, which just means one color for the armature, one color for the body of it. Because most of the time they want the armature to match the wall or be black, just so it almost looks like it's floating.
So think about it like your armature would act more as your raceway. They want that to basically disappear, right? So the term for the armature on the building is the sign would be cantilevered out, right? So they want it to appear as though the armature is affixed to the building and the sign is just becomes invisible floating, right? So that armature, most oftentimes, black is going to recede visually. The eye cannot detect black. So no matter what color the substrate is that it's going into, black is always a safe color for an armature. Or they would paint the armature the color of the substrate, the same way that we would paint a raceway the same color, right? So again, if you see a spec and the armature paint color is like crazy, you want to stop and ask some questions. They might have a plan for it, but we want to verify that that is in fact their plan.
Yeah, the goal of these is just mounting hardware. So think of it no different than like what she said. It's like a raceway. It's only there to hold it on the wall. Aesthetically, it can't offset it. So Crumble likes this being black with this being black. That's why they choose not to do the color of the wall. They're creating kind of their own look to it. But everybody's going to have kind of a different approach they have with that. The front is just a push through. So when we talk about push through, no different than think of a trimless face where we do the shoulder cut on it. It's just inverted. So where the face on a trimless letter would be the spot where we shave down the shoulder cut and then we fit that into the can, this is going to be the opposite. So this was actually an acrylic plate. So a whole piece of, let's call it 1/2 inch acrylic that is just a big rectangle. And our router goes through and routes all of these individual passes so that we get this thicker part on this side. That literally then just pushes through. We have, it's called a stud welder. Yeah, I'm just explaining it from this side so that they can see it, and then I'll flip it over.
Okay.
So you stud weld at set spots where it's going to be a threaded rod where you can screw a nut onto the other side. So that's what that piece is. Those are your stud welds with your threaded rod and your nuts on there. This is just a plate. If you tilt it, let's go that way. So if you look through it, that's where you can see where it's a little bit thicker. All of these spots where the letters are, you can see that's where the push-through part is. The rest of it is super, super routed down acrylic. You're not going to be able to see it because of the lip, but it's got a little bit of a lip.
No, but if you show it this way, they can see the letters. That's what's pushing through, just that depth.
So that's really all a push-through is. Now, there's a lot of different designs with push-through, and that's where aesthetically it can get a little bit different. But for the most part, when somebody refers to push-through, they're just calling it a metal face with a thick acrylic pushing through that metal face. And then there's a lot of different designs that you can get to achieve different colors and things of that nature. These are just for, again, we want a fastener with it. So that is actually a welded threaded rod. And then we put the nuts and the washer on there just so that it has the strength that it needs to hold it. So that, again, we're not worried about this bad boy falling off the wall.
Can you guys see that really well? Okay, good. And then can you see the depth of the acrylic that's coming through there? So that allows that light on the edge. So when you hear that term, right, that's what it allows, is that light coming on the edge of that letter. Okay. Yeah, that's good. You had it.
Oh no, it went off. My fat finger hit it.
Right there. Can you guys see that edge lighting?
That's what you would get all the way across it, is just a nice edge light. So it's really the benefit of a push through. It's just a different aesthetic approach to it. Usually when people like push throughs, they know it's going to be an area that's going to have high foot traffic. Because again, that edge lighting, you're not going to see from 20 feet. It's going to be really hard to make that out. So it's really for places that, you know, people are going to be walking under it, to the side of it, and they're going to be seeing the edge of that push through portion. If not, get them trim cap, get them trimless, no different than anything like that. Like trimless, you get it 30 feet up in the building, you're not seeing a tiny little edge light on it. So again, it's an aesthetic that's used for high foot traffic, high traffic areas, indoor lobby signs, things like that. So when we look at something like this, the main difference is that acrylic, because of the thickness of it, these get very heavy very quick. It's not really the welding and all that that goes into it that makes it heavy. Square tube that we're using here does add significant weight to it, but it's also the weight of the acrylic. So the reason that we have size caps for like a push-through logo, for instance, is really the weight of the acrylic. It's not the weight of the material itself. So I just want everyone to understand the weight always comes from the acrylic portion.
Is this max dimension the same as our 30 square feet for regular logo?
No.
Okay, what is that?
Well, no one's gonna make, the whole purpose of like a blade sign is going to be small and storefront. I would have to ask Cuddy what he capped the dimensions at, but I'm telling you right now, they're never gonna be larger than something you could hold in your hands for the most part. The biggest one I've seen was maybe 42 inches wide, but that had a ton of welding to it. So I mean, the armature on that was all one solid piece and it was welded all the way around it. And then we made the returns out of 090. So, I mean, it gets very, very, very hefty, very quick. And really, for the most part, people aren't using it for that reason. That's a blade that's going pretty high up on a wall, if I had to guess.
Mhm.
So for the most part, you got to think of these. They're not going higher than maybe 10 feet up. So more than 10 feet up, you're really looking at a different design style overall. That's not what these are intended for.
Mhm.
So they're not going to get super, super, super big. 12 square feet makes a lot of sense because these would get very, very, very heavy. I mean, if you made this double the size, this would easily weigh 70, 80 pounds.
Well, and then again, so think of it this way. This is the only supporting part that's adhering to that building, right? So from an engineering standpoint, we can't have this fall off. And so if you were doing this at construction, then they would actually cantilever part of this armature into the building.
Deep into the wall.
Right. So we're limited. We have to watch the weight of this because this is the only support that's adhering.
Yeah, and what John said, if we get more vertical with it, so let's say we went this way with it, we're gonna add more mount points. So you might go to 3, 4. It depends on the art and the wall they're going into as well, but you're just gonna add more penetrations to the wall so you have support. So for the most part, that's kind of how we make them. You can do the lighting styles a lot of different ways. We actually brought in a handful of people. If you look at how we laid the LED on this, we just laid it in a pattern that's basically right behind where the existing acrylic was. So if the block of acrylic started out as the outline of all these LEDs, that's what we were lighting it up as, because you don't need light for all the spots that have metal. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people light only the exterior of it. So this plate wouldn't exist. This would just be see-through essentially with those 2 armature square tubes running through the middle. And then you just put lights all around the outside. The light kicks around the inside of the can enough to illuminate it and make it look good. This was just our first go at it, and that's what we did. This was the first blade we ever made. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously some things we've learned and some stuff we picked up along the way from there. Other than that, we didn't recess this quite as much. So Dylan would have to verify, but this is only like 3 or 4 inches deep. So if you look at that plate on the inside of there, we don't have a ton of room. As you guys know, as we talked about, LED's best friend is a little bit of depth. So we need at least 2 inches usually for it to light up well. So that's why we did so many LEDs, because it was that close to the face. We needed to get them nice and tight. That way we had even lighting throughout it. So that's kind of the way that these work. Same thing with like push-through letters. If you're simulating like a faux neon or something like that, you're doing the same concept. You're just making the frame of a letter. It's going to be built similar to a reverse letter because it has a metal face. And then you're just going to push through the metal face, and that's going to be the part that lights up. Kind of how that works. So that's a general introduction into blades, push-throughs. I would recommend everybody goes on the website at some point and looks at the gallery of blades and push-throughs on there, especially push-throughs. We've done a handful of them. A lot of them are sample letters at this point, just because we haven't gone super, super, super in depth on that. We will get more into that down the road. Osama, a push through, a reverse edgelet. Was that the question? Mm-hmm. A reverse edgelet is just a trimless flipped around. So the trimless would be the face is the thick part that's on the front side of it. A reverse edgelet is just a reverse letter.
Metal face.
Yep.
With acrylic on the back.
With acrylic on the back, and it's going to be a little bit thicker acrylic. So it's basically just a mirrored trimless letter. That's the concept of an edgelet letter.
And the difference, why would somebody want a reverse edgelet over just a reverse, quote, halo, is a reverse would be a metal face with the light shining onto the building, right? And it gives what's called like that halo glow. So think of an angel, right? And it has kind of that halo effect. That's what a reverse letter does, is it reverses the light. So it's a metal face, no light coming out the front, all the light coming out the back, projecting onto the building. A reverse edgelet would be a metal face, acrylic on the backside, flush mounted onto the wall, so that you're literally seeing the edge lit. That's the term. So you're seeing the edge of the acrylic, just like we just showed you guys when we put the flashlight under the push through. You would only see that edge lit. So think about like a luxury spa, something that wants to really give an elevated perception of their offerings, their services. So like a law firm, think high margin, high dollar, spend a lot of money. You're going to see that kind of sign used, because of what they're saying to the public is, don't walk in here and ask me my fees. If you're asking me the price, you can't afford it, right? So that's what kind of that reverse edge lit would give.
So a very common company over here that does a lot of different versions of. So a good example of one here, Starbucks is a coffee place. They're in very high traffic areas. They do a lot of different variations of blade signs. There's an example of one that's off the side of a wall. That's actually a great image. That's exactly what I'm talking about. An area where maybe it's a street that's open for part of the day, but people are going to be mainly foot traffic.
And so point out the armature.
So you have the armature up here. This is just like a half moon armature. And then they ran the electrical probably through that little down circular run. It looks like they have one over here as well. And that's just attached to the wall like that guy. So they have a couple spots. That's probably their electrical run right there. That's probably just for support. And then those are the armatures welded. They just went with one consistent plate instead of two broken up plates. It's really just down to the brand. Starbucks is also, they use a lot of black in their coloring scheme. So you can see, I mean, that's like a tan or a lighter colored wall, but they want the black to kind of pop on that. And then it looks like on this, they actually use trim cap or a little like retainer looking guy on the edge, because you can see a little bit of a gap around there. But just an example, a lot of different places do different ones. This is a different version of an armature. So that's actually a non-lit, and then they put lights on the top armature. So it actually shines onto it. That's actually a really common style. Like in the UK, they don't do a lot of lighting over there or lit stuff. So they'll do a lot of like almost wood. They'll do actually some really cool wood finishing with like lights that go straight onto it. They're a little bit more strict about electrical stuff over there. But there you go. So just, it's up to the vibe of the company, honestly, and what they're trying to accomplish.
This is a good example of the Starbucks letters, right, are more traditional channel letters, and then the blade, what you're seeing beside it.
Yeah, there's one with like kind of a wood texture to it.
So instead of posting the logo beside the letters, they're taking the logo and making that their blade.
They actually, the reason I pulled this up in the first place is Starbucks actually has one. If you look at these letters in the background, those are like stood off halo lit letters. But they're actually very big, especially in airports. They do this gold color lettering like they did there. And then they do an edge lit product on the back. It looks sharp. Mm-hmm. Like I guarantee you that's where edge lit became more of the craze in the industry, because there's like 97,000 Starbucks in every single state. So they do a lot of edge lit products. They look really good, like really, really, really good. And then they'll do it with stainless and stuff like that too. And it's a very, very sharp look. So edge lit is basically what I would consider casinos, indoor, maybe some lobby signs, but for the most part, it's going to be a retail shop of some sort, like a coffee shop, maybe a retail clothing shop, something like that. You're not going to walk into a law firm and see like an edge lit lobby letter. That's just a little bit of overkill for what they're trying to do. So that's a general idea of how those are used, both blades and the other. So yeah, kind of cool. A lot of different examples of blade signs. This is like another example of a blade that someone's hanging on the inside and they're just running it off two long tubes. We've made something similar to that in the past as well. Again, it's just kind of whatever the end users.
So that's a ceiling mount blade.
Yeah.
That's hung interior, but projecting through their mirror or their window storefront.
This is probably in like a big city. So they're just wanting to show people like, hey, this is our door and you are at the right place. Just a super high foot traffic area. That could be more like inside of an airport or like a mall or something like that.
It's hard to see on that photo, but that armature is so cool.
Yeah, it's a funky armature.
Yeah.
So they do, Starbucks has some of the most creative signage in my opinion. They just do all sorts of crazy different things with it. and they have a lot of different ideas. So that's kind of a general rundown. Blades, edgelit, all that type of stuff. We're just trying to get in and capture a little bit more what we would call aesthetic pleasing, gets us into a little bit more interior with having to have like insane high finish paint and stuff like that. And really visually, I think they're a lot cooler than like a wood finish or something that has like a crazy high gloss paint on it or something like that. Anyways, it's a way to visually stand out a little bit.
It's also higher margin for us, and it's something fun, right? To do something different. And it also allows us to say yes to more program work, so that we don't have to say, well, we can do your channel letters, but we don't really do blades. It allows us to start saying yes to more program work.
So a little bit of what I want to go over now is just shop drawings. This is actually a new shop drawing, so we have not launched this yet. It's going to look a little funky compared to how our normal shop drawing right now lays out, so everyone bear with me. This still has all the nuts and bolts of the original shop drawing. We just moved some stuff around a little bit, so it's a little easier for everyone to figure out where everything's at.
But this one is specifically for blades.
Yeah, I'm not going to build a blade on here. I'm just showing them a shop drawing.
Okay.
So all of our, what we're going to call financial related things are going to be in this little section right up here. Still, our shop drawing number is going to be up here. Production date, external date, project name, customer name. Then you'll have contact information. That's actually for the place that ordered, correct?
It's the customer that is ordering the project. That is their contact and phone number that we've moved up to that left-hand corner.
Yep. Shipping is going to be the shipping company it's going to, because almost half of our shipments go to a company that's not our customer. So
well, it's not the shipping company. It's the person we're delivering to.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Place that we're shipping it to.
Yes.
That company is often different from the company that ordered. So this will be the contact from the place that ordered. That'll be the contact from the company that's receiving the shipment. And then everything over here is all the same stuff that we have on our current shop drawings. It's just going to be all of our internal things so that we can actually build it. Number of letters, number of sets, linear footage, and then customer call outs for certain things. Couple things that I want everyone to know. So there's really only a handful of things that a customer would want to know from us. One of them is wiring. I've gotten this question a lot recently. Wiring, all they're asking for is the layout of the actual letters with the load of the LEDs and the power supplies. So I will actually pull up a different example. That way we can look at it real quick. Okay, so this is our current shop drawing layout. The illumination portion is one of the most important pieces for the customer because they have to do the electrical. If someone is asking for a wiring diagram or a diagram, I do not need anyone to contact anybody in the shop. You just need to take a screen cap of this and email it over to the customer. All they're asking for is how many LEDs are per letter, which is just going to be the logo has 58, the T has 4, the R has 7, and then it breaks it down by power supply. So this logo is on power supply 1. These letters are going to be on power supply 2. These letters are going to be on power supply 3, and these letters will be on power supply 4. That is all they're asking you for. So all you need to do is take a screenshot of it and attach that in an email and send it over. If they have a question around that, that is really not our responsibility to handle. I am not an electrician. I am not an installer. I have no idea what building they're going into. We load all of our things properly. So if I send you 4 power supplies, we have done the math to make sure that we have the electrical load properly managed on those power supplies with the right amount of LEDs. If they ask you questions about electrical, you are also not an electrician. We do not answer those questions because that is for the installer to figure out. If the installer does not know, it's really on their responsibility to contact an electrician that would actually know how to do it, or they need to reach out to the company. For this one, it would be principal. You guys can look at whoever the LED manufacturer is that's in this drop down. As you see, there's not a lot of them, but it would be on them to reach out to that company and figure it out. So things that we do not take calls for and do not handle internally is anything electrical based. I handle the electrical here. We make sure we have people that are UL certified to make sure that we handle it from a UL certification standpoint, and we know that we set it up for the proper load. Past that, it is on them to handle that portion. So if you ever hear of a diagram, a layout, anything like that, it's going to come from that portion. If the other question that we get a lot is going to be, A template. If someone is asking you for a template, it's never going to be on a raceway job. That's always going to be on a flush mount job. That is just a template that goes on the wall.
It's a pattern.
Yes, a pattern, a paper pattern. We send paper patterns with our jobs. Sometimes people will ask you that before they get it. The reason for that is they are going to go pre-drill that wall. So they are going to go out and get that wall prepared so that when they get the letters, all they have to do is put them through the predetermined mounting spots. If you are looking for that, you need to reach out to the pre-production department, pre-production team at Direct Sign Wholesale. We can send that to you. It's always going to be in a flexi file or an EPS file. That's how we send those out. That is a pretty common ask for places that are going to pre-drill. What I will tell you is places that pre-drill install a ton of signs. They know exactly what they're doing. Places that do not pre-drill and are asking you a bunch of electrical questions, they're not a true installer. That's like somebody's uncle that they talked to that said, I've wired a house one time, and I will tell you more often than not, you are going to get a warranty because they're going to fry every LED module in the entire sign. If you're getting a lot of questions about diagrams, I need you to mentally kind of log that as this should be a little bit scary to me. If you're getting questions about a template, that's a very good thing. It usually it means they know what they're doing. From there, anything else is going to be really questions around raceways, what's the width, what's the height, all of that type of stuff. Good thing to note with the height of our raceways is that it's an extra 2 inches from the height that's on the shop drawing. That was a recent question that we got. So if it's a 5x6, it is a 6-inch depth, but it also has a 2-inch hanger bar. So you have to factor in the hanger bar. So if we make a 4-inch tall raceway, it is 6 inches tall total because it's going to account for the 2 inches to mount into the wall. So make sure everybody remembers that. The height, you always have to add 2 inches. If it is a double hanger bar, you need to add 4 inches. So just make sure that you're looking at that really well because it will impact what you would be able to communicate with them.
The other point I just want to point out really quickly. So if someone calls you and asks for a pattern prior to shipment, they're going to get a digital file. That means that they are going to have to print that pattern on a plotter. So you also want to make sure that they are a sign shop that has the equipment because we're not going to print that and ship it ahead of time. They will get a digital file that they have to print. The paper pattern will come in the crate with the letters. So just be sure that you understand that difference.
Also, another thing with patterns, always, always, always open the crate and take the pattern out. If you let the paper pattern sit outside for 3 months, if it gets rain on it, it will disintegrate. You will not see a paper pattern when you open it in 3 months. It will not be there because it will have disintegrated from the rain. It is butcher paper. So it's no different than what you'd wrap food in. You wouldn't leave food in it for 3 months. It won't be there much longer. They need to open the crate and take the pattern out and put the pattern indoors. They can pay for a Tyvek pattern.
Yes.
If they want a Tyvek pattern will survive all of the elements, but it is an upcharge. So 9 times out of 10, if someone's like, well, you didn't send me a pattern, you need to first ask when the sign was delivered to them because we've gotten that a lot. One of them not long ago, we had a picture of the pattern in the crate, but it sat outside for 9 months and it was no longer there because it had sat through 4 different seasons. You just need to make sure when they get the crate, inspect the letters, take the pattern out. That is always the most important part. Other than that, all of these are going to be included. So power supplies and all that will be included in a foam bag. We always send them in a foam bag unless they're in a raceway, then they're in a raceway. I am kidding you not. I got a question this last week that said you guys didn't include a power supply for a raceway job. And I was like, have they opened up the raceway? They opened up the raceway and all the power supplies were in the raceway. That is a serious red flag, just so we're all on the same page.
From the sign company.
Big time.
That doesn't understand that our raceway's whole point is to house the power supply.
100%. So again, everything that you're looking for from illumination is in this section. Please do not ask anyone internally. We don't know the load. We don't know all the voltage like math that they need to do for it, the amps, all of that type of stuff. They need to figure that out. That is not on us to figure out. It doesn't matter how much they puff their chest, get angry with you on the phone. It does not matter. We do not handle that portion. So that's kind of a general rule of thumb over there. The other thing just to pay attention to is look at the number of sets over in this top left corner. number of letters and all that type of stuff. The reason that I tell you that's important, if we went through on here and we looked at this and we said, okay, so that's I could also have a floating I. So the I could have an I dot that's not attached to it. This one is on a raceway, but if you're like, well, there's 26 letters, but we showed 27 pieces, the reason is because the I dot counts as a piece. So everyone needs to keep that into account when they're looking at those. No different than when you look down here, we will actually put a period in for that letter. And you'd be like, well, why is there a period? It's because that's the I dot. So just to keep in mind, apostrophes do the same thing. Sometimes apostrophes are floating if they're flush mounted. Where on a job like this, if we did an apostrophe, like let's say there was an apostrophe right there, then that would actually be part of the C or part of the S. So you may count that and be like, well, there should be 28 letters, but there's 27. It's because it's being connected. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Those are some questions that we've had in the last couple of weeks. I think the only other thing is dimmer switch. I know estimating was covered on this, but I want salespeople to know this as well. We cannot dim a standard LED module. We can only dim an RGBW module. So if they need the sign to dim in any way, shape, or form, this is not uber common, but it will come up. They need to go to an RGBW module.
Which means
it would
what?
come with an amplifier and a controller. RGBW is red, green, blue wire. W is the white. It used to be red, green, blue only. You could not get white on that spectrum. So RGBW actually started, I think, middle of last year, maybe early last year. But what that does is the controller and the amplifier allow you to change the dimness. So you have dimness control on it.
But they can also change the color.
You can change the color. But if they're looking for a dimmer in general, there's no such thing as like a dimmer. We can't put a dimmer switch on our standard lights. They're not set up for that. So with the product that we use, you have to go to an RGBW.
The new shop drawing format will launch here probably in the next, I think, 10 or so days. Alex is getting that all the way finalized. And then you will also see the production tracker begin to look differently here over the next few days. We've made it a little more user friendly so that for salespeople, you'll be able to pull it up and see the shipping information follow directly after the assembly. So you'll know that it got through assembly. If it got packed, there will be a check mark box. If it says it's ready to ship, that will tell you that they've made their final payment. And then finally, after that, you'll see immediately the shipping information and the tracking information. Alex has put a lot of time and effort, a lot of brain work. We've basically sent, oh yeah, Alex.
Yeah, Alex, go ahead and share it.
That'd be great.
And then if you don't mind, could you just draw on the screen as I kind of like talk through where stuff is at? You may have to change the color to something a little brighter, but if you stay on the share screen, it'll let you draw stuff on there. Basically on the left-hand side, we haven't changed. There you go. That's beautiful. I think everyone can see that. On the left-hand side, nothing's really changed. So everyone just look at the far left for me to begin with here. So we have the sales rep, which is still the same. DSWU number, which is still the same. Company name, job name, that has not changed either. The newest addition is going to be the product type. The reason for that is we do all of that in the color coding right now. Beautiful, beautiful. This is just going to give it a little bit more information than the color coding. That's a little bit for us internally. It should also help you guys externally, just when you're looking at it. The next part is going to be the mount type. So we used to only call it raceway fabrication or raceways because for forever, all we made was raceways. Now that we're making more stuff, it's a way for us to have an identifier more internally.
Tell them what kind of some of these combos, because we've got like.
So we can walk through. Oh, is DMB dimensional backer?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got it. Got it. Cool. That'll only confuse me for the next 2 months. And then FL anything is going to be front lit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Flush mount.
But it really should be FM.
Yeah, do FM for flush mount.
I'll get that changed.
Sorry, guys. We're in beta still. We're in beta. So FL is going to be FM, which is flush mount. WW is wireway.
But if it has two, it just means that the customer has two different call outs. So part of the job will be flush mount, and then the other part, right, might be on a raceway. So it's showing us that we have two different mounts that we need to look at.
Flush mount and raceway. just means that there's a piece of it that's flush mounted, there's a piece of it that's on a raceway. That is very common, actually. I think that probably goes over most people's heads because we don't really call that out on the tracker. Very, very common for us internally to have partial that goes on a raceway, partial that's flush mounted. Flush mount and FCO, same thing. So flush mount, and then there's an FCO portion to it. What's RC?
RC is custom raceway.
Custom, got it.
Raceway custom, raceway extruded, raceway standard.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to keep the R first.
I did not receive the legend for this yet, just for the record. All I wanted was dimensional backer, wireway, and raceway. So this is a lot more than I asked for. So raceway custom just means anything that's not a 5x6. Anything that's not a 5x6 for internal terminology is called a custom raceway. An extruded raceway is what I showed you guys when we went over the mounting style. So it has those fun little nooks and crannies around the top where you can slide stuff in. And yeah, people love
Also
those.
add structure.
What's TP?
Tenant panel.
Tenant got it. Okay, so those are tenant panels.
Alex also comes with the new drawing and he explains everything as you're looking at it.
Yeah, so that's kind of what that section is. Again, it's a good internal indicator for us. That way, when we're looking at the number in column L, that number in column L for the mount lets us know what we're doing. But right now, it only reflects the number of raceways that we make. So I'm trying to have it encompass a little bit more. That way, when we're actually physically running things through the shop, we know what's going into that. That way, we're not so confused. Also makes it a little bit easier for our paint department not to have to work out of 4 separate areas of the tracker. So we can kind of just cruise down in one way now.
Right, but the most important thing.
I know, you damn desk jockeys and your dates. The date now moved from the left side to the right side.
Which is the most
So if you
important.
look on the other side of the packing, now the due date is still what we're putting it on the week for. The completion date is still when we finish that and ship it and get it on the truck. Can it ship is more of an internal marker for us of payment
Accounting.
and all that stuff,
That's
right?
accounting.
Okay. And then the ship date, I guess, would be what we're telling them the ship date is.
It's when we actually ship it.
Then what's the completion date?
It's when y'all complete it.
It's the packing date.
It's when
packed
packing
into the
completes it, and then can it ship? Because we sometimes, they sit back there because it's done, but we can't ship it because they haven't paid.
Okay.
Mhm, that's what that is. And then
Alright.
and then you scroll over to the next section, and then now you see the shipping information.
Yeah, so now the shipping information is on the right-hand side of that page break. So it'll just have,
Can you scroll over, Alex, just a little
well,
bit?
you gotta zoom out probably, Alex, and then scroll over a little bit. There
There
you
we
go,
go.
right there. So then you'll have the shipping address and then the tracking information right there.
So now instead of scrolling all the way to the whole right side of the tracker, we moved all of that shipping so that it's right there in front of us. And then all of the production portion, the support part that really fills in the job progress, follows the shipping.
Right. So just a new layout. It should help all of you guys a little bit. This is going to be a little interesting when we roll it into production. It's going to be a little confusing, but we'll figure it all out. Yeah, the
Yes.
purple means we're shipping it to an installer or someone that is not
The
our
order.
customer.
Right.
So it just means it's going to a different party. I think that'll be interesting to see because I think everyone will realize how much we don't ship to our customers,
Right.
which will help understand where some of the issues come from.
Right.
Yep.
But again, it's a way to verify. So whenever you see this information on the tracker, and if your customer is saying, well, that didn't come to me, and you see purple, you're like, right, we show it wasn't supposed to come to you. We had it marked differently, right? So it's just a really quick visual way for you to see, did it land in the right place? So a couple of new layouts that you guys will see. We may be doing some tweaks, but it was getting the information so that when your salespeople are trying to quickly identify something, or a customer calls in, Aaron needs to quickly give information. All of that is in the first view without scrolling. The rest of these really sort of like what Blake calls the colored legends and all of the codes. It's really more production information, but as salespeople, we need to understand it so we can best articulate that to the customer. So we'll just continue to go over these things as we roll it out and tweak it, and we're just going to keep aiming for the bullseye until we get there. So I appreciate all your efforts, Alex. This has been a big, big, big task. So big high fives.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Blake. Great blade overview, and then we'll dig in deep and get a little bit more into the weeds so that you guys will know better how to sell it to your customers so that they can sell it to the end user. And then you guys will know exactly what our max capabilities are, and we'll get some really good examples out. Kate will get some good photos, and we'll get stuff out to you guys soon. So thanks.
Cool.
All right.
All right. See you guys later.